Caesar.
Sciences. It is Friday, November 4th at 8:36 a.m. at the Marriott Riverside in Riverside, California. We could have in a second.
Good morning. Renee Launer.
Here.
Dr. Christine Whitlisbach.
Here.
Betty Conley.
Here.
Dr. Peter Chu.
Here.
Christina Wong.
Here.
Deborah Brown. Patricia Locke Dawson is not present. Dr. Leah Brew.
Here.
Max Disposti.
Here.
Karen Pines is not present. Did I get everyone? We have a quorum.
Just a note that you might see some of the board members using paperless as much as we can, and so those that are on computers are accessing all of the board materials online. Next, I would like to move on to introductions. I'll start with the board first. Renee?
Renee Launer, LCSW member.
Christine Whitlisbach, public member.
Betty Conley, LEP member.
Peter Chu, public member.
Christina Wong, LCSW member.
Angelique Scott, Board's Legal Counsel.
Deborah Brown, public member.
Kim Matson, Executive Officer for the Board.
Leah Brew, LPCC member.
Max Disposti, public member.
Christy Berger, Regulatory Analyst for the Board.
Roseanne Helms, Legislative Analyst for the Board.
Steve Sodergren, Assistant Executive Officer for the Board.
Okay, thank you. If there are any members in the audience that would like to introduce themselves, please step to the podium.
Jeffrey Liebert, AAMFT, California.
Welcome.
Dean Porter, California Association for LPCCs.
Welcome.
Good morning. Wendy Vitalich. I just got here. I'm racing. LMFT and advocate for thousands of interns.
Welcome. Okay, before we continue, we have a couple of amendments here. On item B under consent calendar, item E under the executive officer's report, and okay, B under consent calendar, E under executive officer's report, and on F under the discussion and possible action regarding rulemaking proposals, 1804, you just circle that, 1805, 1806,
Lower
We're talking about 23F, is that what?
Yeah.
Okay.
1806, okay, so 1804, 1805, 1806, and 1806.01. Need a motion to remove those from the agenda.
This one,
Oh, we want to pull
24.
24, sorry, and 24. Need a motion to pull those from the agenda today.
I'll make a motion to move those items from the agenda today.
To a later.
To the later
date.
meeting.
Second.
Second by Peter. Any discussion? Any public comment? Okay, call for the vote.
Renee Launer.
Yes.
Dr. Christine Whitlisbach.
Yes.
Betty Conley.
Yes.
Dr. Peter Chu.
Aye.
Christina Wong.
Yes.
Deborah Brown.
Aye.
Dr. Leah Brew.
Yes.
Max Disposti.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Moving on now to the consent calendar. There is only one now under the consent calendar, and that's the May board meeting minutes. I need a motion to approve the minutes.
So move.
Okay, Peter made a motion. Second by Renee Lawner. Any discussion by the board? By the public? Okay,
Okay. Renee Lawner,
Yes.
Dr. Christine Whitlisbach,
Yes.
Betty Conley,
Yes.
Dr. Peter Chu,
Aye.
Christina Wong,
Yes.
Deborah Brown,
aye.
Dr. Leah Brew,
Yes.
Max Disposti.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Now on to the chair report. A couple of things, I guess really three things. There is an announcement. I want to announce the exempt setting committee members. Thank you to those of you who, came to the call and said that you would serve. That would be Karen Pines, Betty Conley, Patricia Locke Dawson, and Christina Wong. And Patricia has volunteered to chair that group. The next is board member activities. And those, Kim and I attended DCA's annual update on travel and budget. And in November, Christina Wong and Renee Lawner and Kim Matson
Steve.
and Steve Sodergren will be presenting this board, or representing this board, at the annual ASW meeting in San Diego, correct?
Yeah, ASWB, the Association of Social Work Boards.
That's all I have for the chair report.
Any other board members want to report?
Do you have anybody, anything they want to report? We'll move on to the executive officers' reports. Kim?
Okay, good morning. Are you able to pick me up, Caesar? We're good? Okay. So our fiscal 16-17 year budget grew a little bit. We are now at $12,679,000. The figures for our expenses and revenue are as of August 31st this year. Our expenses through that time period total about 12% of the budget, or just a little over $1.5 million. And again, right now, the largest part of our expenses is personnel costs. We've collected just a little over $2 million in revenue, and so we seem to be right on target in past years. And if the committee would like to look at the chart, you can see how we align with previous years in collecting our revenue. Our current fund condition, this was last presented in April and has not been updated, but as of April 16, we are reflecting an 11.6 months in reserve, which is pretty healthy. Also within our fund condition, you'll see that we have received a $6.3 million loan repayment from some of the general fund loans that we had. And to date, we've received $10.9 million back in repayment, which is nice, and that leaves an outstanding balance of $1.4 million. So we're getting that back, which is really nice. Are there any questions about the budget? I think I reported to you at the last meeting that our exam expenses, you'll notice on your expense sheet, we have increased our budget significantly to 1.8, and that's to allow us to spend the money we're taking in to pay for the law and ethics exam. Moving on, our operations report. Overall, our application volume increased in the first quarter of this year, and this increase is due to the graduation season that occurs the late part of the fiscal year, as well as the increase in applications for the law and ethics exam. You'll notice that intern applications went up 46% over the last quarter report, and the other significant of note, the figure of note is that LAP applications did drop about 74%. I'm still happy to report that all of our applications are processed within 60 days. Most are 30 days or under. So the additional resources continues to do its work, and we're real pleased with that. We issued 1,067 initial licenses in the first quarter, and as of October 1st, we have over 107,000 licensees and registrants with the board. That's a huge growth. So our examination program, 8,807 exams were administered in the last quarter. That's 3 months. When we look at that, the California Law and Ethics, the stats reflect a 45% increase in examination takers. And the LEPs, we had more LEPs take the exam this last quarter. That was up by 57%. We also conducted 9 examination workshops. I'm going to stop, and I think Jeff has a question.
It's a very basic question. First, I want to say it's amazing that every one of these meetings that I've gone to, the examination and the time to process those applications has shortened. So thank you for all that work. I just want to clarify that the days that are listed, is that calendar days or business days?
Calendar.
Thank you.
Alrighty, our administration program, this is sort of the Bear support, so it's our cashiering unit, and they received over 12,000 applications, so that's a 16% increase since the last quarter. That number does not include renewal applications. I'm really excited to see that more individuals are using the online renewal program. We had a 36% increase last quarter. And what that does is it reduces the number of apps that come directly into our office as well as to DCA Central Cashiering. So those numbers are down. I'm really excited about that. It's a super efficient way of getting your license renewed. The enforcement work remains steady and strong. We received 285 consumer complaints and 358 criminal convictions. The spike in criminal convictions is reflective of applicants who come to us that have a prior conviction. So that spiked up a little bit this last quarter because we got more applications. We closed 550 cases. We sent 42 cases to the Attorney General's office for formal discipline. We filed 30 accusations and 3 statement of issues. And the number of final citations that we had was 43 in the last quarter. And overall, we reduced our timeline to complete formal discipline, and we are now at 765 days. The CE audit program, that the resumption of that has been really interesting. From July to September, we audited a total of 88 licensees. 22 failed the audit, so that's 25%. And in your packet is the pass-fail rate by license type. I want to note that, it looks like the LEP rate is high, and it is, but they were only required as of 2012 to complete CE, and we were not auditing at that time, so I think they're going to catch up. But overall, we're still hovering at a 25% fail rate, and there's 3 reasons that they're failing. It's consistently they forget to take the law and ethics course within the renewal period. It's consistent that some of them fail to take the hours within their renewal period. And it's consistent that they didn't take continuing education from an approved provider. So we'll continue to keep working and put out the information and try to get those numbers down. We attended 7 outreach events. Primarily, these were the MFT consortium meetings where we met with the educators and shared the information again about exam restructure, again about continuing education. We started talking about the implementation of the telehealth regulations. Staff attended the NASW conference meeting in Burbank, and we had a booth there. We were very well received. And our fall-summer newsletter was published in October, and a copy is available on the table outside. Finally, our executive management team met with the DCA Internet team on October 13th to begin the process to redesign our website, and so that's underway. And our goal is to get that out after the first of the year, and we're really envisioning a more streamlined process to make it easier for folks to find what they need rather than having to read through pages and pages of information. just if you want to get an idea of what we're doing, the Board of Podiatric Medicine was one board that had their website redesigned by the DCA team, and we like that look. It's very, very, very streamlined. And finally, we just set the date to begin our strategic plan. We will have our planning session the first day of the August board meeting, and the environmental scans will be going out prior to that, so we have all the information we need to develop our next strategic plan. So, any questions? Yes.
Yes. Are we able to get someone to the California professors and the representatives of different agencies? It's just, it meets more than one.
Yeah, well, those are the meetings that were attended. They're
I-
MFT consortiums. And Steve, Roseanne, Christy, and I rotate in terms of calling in. And we've been participating at Inland Empire, Orange County Camps, their chapter, and the MFT consortium in that group, the Sacramento Valley MFT consortium, Contra Costa, I think, is another one off the top of my head. But yeah, I've sent out emails to all of the contacts asking them to let me know what their dates are so that we can get them on our calendar. And we call in and we try to, Roseanne prepares sort of a brief summary for us all to, hit some high points, and then it's supplemented by call in from camp representatives call in, so.
If you need, I can get to the one that's held in the Valley. I know a lot of people there,
Yeah.
and they always get very excited.
Absolutely. Yeah, the board members are welcome to attend these events if you would like to do so. So
Well,
I can send
I
out
was
the meeting dates.
Thinking of more about covering it,
Mm-hmm.
your memo.
Okay.
I don't normally go anymore because my education hat is smaller, and my agency hat is smaller, but I can still deliver in person your memo and chat with people.
Thank you. I know Renee has attended the Clinical Society Workers, Clinical Society for California Society for Clinical Social Work meetings too, so those have been well received.
So I have a question about the examination, I don't know how you call it. So basically, it's the population, the registrant, when they pass the law and ethics examination, and then they should be eligible to take the clinical exam. So when they know that they pass, they should be receiving, that transition, to sign up, for the being eligible, and then be able to sign up for the national exam. So how does that transition go? Because I was previously hearing a lot of the kind of rumbling that, they got lost and, yeah. So I just want to, get an update for that.
So primarily what's happened is that many of the registrants, despite our best efforts, were caught unaware about the new requirement to take the law and ethics course. So that has delayed their registration because the law now says you can't renew your registration unless you take this examination. So that's been an issue. The word's getting out, they're getting through. I think staff is now, it's within 2 to 2.5 weeks that they're processing those applications. We have one person doing the law and ethics exams only. Not everybody that takes the law and ethics exam is eligible to move into the clinical because that does require us to receive and approve their supervised work hours. So in terms of notification, those that have had their hours approved by the board and they have that letter in hand and they haven't received notification that they can register for the exam, for the clinical part, they need to contact us. Sometimes what happens is that because they were already existing in our system, when the transition went from the way we used to do it to the way we do it now. Not all of the records converted correctly, so there's a glitch in the electronic records that we fix. I know we've run a number of batch programs to fix them, but again, if they call over to, PSI, which does the LMFT exam, or ASWB, which does the social worker exam, or MBCC, which does the LPCC exam, if their eligibility is not over there when they call, they need to let us know.
I think that's
it.
the
But it's
yeah.
going smoother.
Right.
I will say this, right now, we've noticed in the office, the calls have dropped way off. And the ones that we are hearing now are the ones that didn't tune into any of the meetings that we had, aren't connected with their professional associations, evidently didn't get the postcard that we mailed out to all of them, and didn't clearly read the renewal instructions, and bypassed everything on the website about the exam restructure to renew online. So, those folks were getting them through, but I have no explanation as to why you didn't get that information, but the series of the delays that we had initially are long gone. That they're not happening anymore. We're getting people over there pretty quickly.
Yeah, I do hear less rumbling now, and I want to thank the staff, Steve particularly, to help out, because I know it's a very tedious process, to find the registration, on the computer and try to detect the problem and stuff. Yeah, thank you so much for the information.
Hi, good morning. Just regarding all on this issue, I get a lot of questions about what to do next as far as, if people are sitting there going, why haven't I gotten approved for the clinical? And if their hours were approved last year, they're sitting there thinking you guys are just going to call them up and say, okay, you're cool. And I remind them that there's an application to fill out because, of course, that's different before the transition. So I'm educating as many interns as I can. There's probably about close to 9,000 interns on this Facebook page now, it keeps growing, that I'm posting as much and answering a ton of questions and giving out your emails and all that stuff. But a lot of people are still not aware about that 12-hour course, that they have to take it to retake.
Right.
And so...
Well, and that's going to be a hot topic for the next newsletter. I want to create a flow chart to tell people, what you do in the next step. But I would say that anybody that got a letter that said your hours are approved, they've taken and passed the law and ethics, and they're still waiting for us to tell them that they're good to go, I would invite them to call, well, for LMFTs, it's PSI. If their eligibility is not over there, we need to know about it because it should have gone over.
Okay, and also just, I know, I'm grateful that you guys are looking at the website. Simple is better, just so people can really navigate their way, because I tend to be sending a lot of links to people all the time because they can't find it.
Right.
So, anyway, thank you for all your work.
And Steve, do you have anything else to add to the exam?
Just the last part about if you passed your hours are approved last year, they need to send in that form.
The form.
So it's with the money because, sorry, we do need money for you to take the exam. But, yeah, other than that, no. Just that we keep working on ASWB has gotten better, and I think as it goes on, we're getting with the population of people that were in the exam cycle. Previously, that was where the issues we're having with the data issues. And so that's as we move forward, it is getting better because they're getting kind of situated into the right data set, I guess, right now. So things are getting better.
I'd like to note for the record that Board Member Karen Pines has joined us. And I'd also like to remind public attendees, when you're giving a comment, if you could please introduce yourself. I know we still have some people strolling in, so if you can introduce yourself, that would be great for the record.
I have another question. So previously, in the previous meeting, I kind of mentioned, have a suggestion to, to talk about the passing rates of the new examination. So, so where are we at with that?
We have those. I know Steve was working this week on or last week, was it? Yeah, it was this week. I've been here too many days.
Yeah, including the board packet.
Oh, including in the board packet.
Yes.
Okay, we will do
I think
that.
that's what I think we had discussed, and I apologize with the time involvement of other things and getting on the website. I think we had discussed, and we're looking for still to do that is just like an exam report.
Okay.
Within
That would be
the-
great.
And
Yeah.
I do have some pass rates.
Yeah, do you want to talk about those?
So for the, yeah, we usually, when we post them, we're going to post these, it's the school pass rates. Is this on? Yeah. School pass rates on the website, and we'll be doing that soon. We've been latent to do it for the past year and a half, but we'll get the last three segments up there. We do them in 6-month increments. And I still want to look over this data a little bit more, but from January 2016 to June 2016, these are, I'm just going to give the pass rates really quick. The law and ethics for the MFT group, 80% pass rate. For the MFT clinical, it was an 83%. For the clinical social work, the law and ethics, that would be 83%. For ASWB exam, that would be the clinical for the social workers, that's 87%. LEP, there's a 45% pass rate. That's a very low population, so that's why it's, I don't know, I have to look back at that. For the licensed professional clinical counselor, law and ethics, 83%. And NBCC, it looks like, from the report that I got, a 92% pass rate, and that would be LPCC, their kind of clinical exam. That one I actually would like to look at more to see. Breeze is pulling the data, but I'm not too sure about that one. So.
Thank you so much. That's awesome to know. Yeah.
All righty, moving on. We have some personnel updates. This year's budget does reflect some permanent positions that we had requested and were approved, and some new ones, so we've been on a hiring frenzy. And primarily the positions we received were to permanently establish the temporary positions that we were borrowing and creatively financing. So I'm happy to report that Alicia Day, a former BBS employee, has returned to the board as a cashier. Happy to report that Portia Hillman was appointed permanently as our office assistant, and she serves in the mailroom, she's wonderful. A new hire is Shelley Manassi, and she works in the cashiering unit, and this is a limited term position through the end of the fiscal year, but given the workload, I'm feeling pretty confident I'm going to be able to establish that as permanent. One of the new positions we got was another office assistant to assist Portia Hillman in distributing the mail, and we hired Michelle Diaz. She's new to state service. And we also hired Amanda Ayaya. She is from the Vet Med Board, and she is serving in the licensing unit, and she's primarily performing the functions of the LPCC Families and Couples certification. And I have writer's cramp. I'm signing every one of those. I get back and I always have a stack. So I have lots of job security there.
Kim, they're very nice forms, by the way.
Thank
So
you.
I got it in the mail. I was very impressed with mine.
Thank you. That was kind of a collaborative effort. I agreed to sign them because the licensing manager felt that it was important, and I agreed. And then she liked the look of the gold seal on there. And so we bought gold seal stickers, and they're embossed with the board seal. It's really nice. It does look really nice. The office technician position that we got, this was one that we established permanent to replace a temporary position, and the incumbent in the temporary position, Kim Covington, is now in a permanent position with us. So our front staff is very solid. And I mentioned this at our last meeting, our IT specialist, Lene Stiles, retired. So we are now, to replace her duties, we now have the Department of Consumer Affairs, Office of Information Services, doing a lot of the work that Lene did. And some of the functions we have retained in the office and are being performed by another staff member. We're in the midst of recruiting for 4 different positions, some vacancies, some still new positions. We have a vacancy in the enforcement unit, and I know that they are looking at applications right now, and we expect interviews to occur this month. Caitlin Martin accepted the management service technician in the exam unit to help process the additional applications for testing accommodations and other duties as required. She's a pretty sharp lady. We have a staff service analyst position in the examination unit, and we are interviewing for those here within the next 2 weeks. And we also have a vacancy in the enforcement unit to staff service analyst. This one reviewed criminal conviction and rap sheets, and will work in the probation unit, and we're recruiting for that now. So we're nearly full. This really, the total number of staff between the various positions that we're authorized for and what you're allowed to put into what they term the blanket, we're over 60 people now. So, yeah. It's,
We're growing.
Yeah. So we are alive and well. Any questions? Oh, additionally, I do want to say that we have, operationally, we did take a look at the phone system, and we discovered that there was a glitch. It shouldn't have been there. Basically, if you called in and hit 0, you would bounce. If it went, it would automatically go to 3 different lines. If those lines were busy, it would just tell you nobody's here, call back later. We've revised that now, that you're now allowed to leave a message. Staff checks it frequently during the day, so callbacks will be given. And then we've also requested a phone queue. So that should take care of some of the phone comments about not being able to get in touch with anybody. We also have a dedicated email system for exam now, and those are being checked on a very daily basis. So we're really trying to step up the communication and customer service in that unit. Yes.
Do you have the capacity or the availability of a message that says, if you don't want to wait, leave your name and number, and you'll be called back in that order?
That would be part of the queue system. I know they're working on it. The mailbox that we have for the front desk right now is just it's a Band-Aid solution. I didn't realize people were getting cut off. I called it. I got cut off. I thought, oh, that's kind of odd. And then in talking about it, and we looked at it, and a couple more staff people did it. We went, yeah, that's not going to be good. So we have this Band-Aid in place right now.
Okay, but I do find that when does anybody else, when you run into a busy, like an airline, they will reliably take your name in the order that has been received and call you back.
Yeah.
Wait on the line.
Exactly.
That feels like good service.
Yeah, and so if we can develop that, definitely. I'm not sure what the capability is, or at least to be able to tell people what their wait time is.
Yeah.
So, and maybe at that point, we can design it so they can leave a message or call back. But definitely try to step that up. Strategic planning, I'm just going to it's more of an update. I tried to highlight where things were completed so you could see that we have been really busy. And some other notes where we say, we used to say staff work is ongoing. Some of those objectives are really routine functions of the managers. And so, they're consistently evaluating the processes and looking at what the staff is doing to see how we can become more efficient or provide better service. So I've tried to revise, the comments in those sections. Highlighting some of the work with the Office of Statewide Planning, Health, and Development Group. In the last newsletter, we did include a link and information about loan repayment. I met with the group from OSHPD, and it's really important that we get that information out to our licensees and registrants because it's a way to mitigate some of their loan costs. And they really sought us out because there's awards going to other mental health individuals, but not so much with us. And so I agreed to put this in the newsletter. We put it on our website to get it out there, and they're going to give me a report later on the number of applicants and the number of individuals that were awarded. So I think that we're trying to mitigate those costs. So, and that's my report, unless anyone has any other questions. Okay. Oh.
May I just ask a question about the OSHPD loan report? The professionals listed on that do not include LPCCs. Do you have any way to tell
I can ask them.
ask how we get included. We're included in the loan assumption program, but not the loan repayment program. I think that's it. The other thing, when you were talking about the pass rates, recently it was reported the passing scores. I would like the LPCC passing scores. You published them somewhere, I can't think now, for the social workers and the MFTs, but I get questions about the LNE score.
Oh, for the
What is
LNE?
the
Sure.
passing score?
We can add that.
Not the passing rate, but
But
the actual score.
I don't see,
I've
it would be.
never known that.
Yeah, we can get that information.
Okay, I'd appreciate it. And also, when you're talking about the MFT designation letters going out, I'd like to do a little report on that to our members. Do you have any idea how many you've sent so far? A large stack, I guess. It's okay.
I'm
if
going
you
to
don't-
guess just off the top of my head. I think it's somewhere between 200 and 300 right now.
Okay.
And if you want exact numbers,
No,
I can
no,
ask
just
Amanda, but they're
general idea.
going out.
Just to something to encourage everybody
Oh
that
my
it is
goodness.
happening.
I got to tell, yeah, no, it's, I mean, I get anywhere from like that much to that much. I mean,
Yeah.
it's, yeah.
Well-
People are applying, we're getting them through, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and thank you for all those signatures.
It's changed.
You may get a stamp in the end.
Oh, no. The stamp would have looked nicer, but, there's something about blue ink and personal signature. It's
It
nice.
is
And I
very
don't mind
nice.
doing it.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay,
joking.
they can put it on their wall that way. It looks nice.
Looks nice.
Do you have any estimate of when that designation might go up on a person's license on the website?
I'm going to punt to Steve on that one. Do
Okay.
you know the sir for that?
When the cert will go up on the website,
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that's what the counties want. You know,
Yeah.
they're spooked by this extra requirement. They don't want to hire someone unless they're fully licensed to do everything, and they want to just go to the BBS website and see that.
For, at least for right now, they can give them a copy of the certificate. That's what
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the breeze.
sorry,
Yeah.
No, it'll be,
Oh, my.
To get it up there now?
Yeah.
We didn't put a sir in already then? I think we did. Dean, we'll get back to you.
We'll do what?
We'll get back to you and let you
Oh,
know when
get
it's
back
going to
to
be
me?
up on the
Okay.
website. Yeah.
Okay, fine, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Dean, could you just, for the record, state your name and who you represent?
Dean Porter, California Association for LPCCs.
Okay, moving on to item number 22. We have the approval of minutes of April 15th, 2016. And I need an approval from those who were in attendance
I'll second it.
Okay, so I have a motion by Renee.
And second by Christina.
And a second by Christina Wong. Discussion. Okay, so just a call for a vote on those three.
Okay, I'm going to include you, although you may or may not want to vote on it. Renee Launer? Yes. Dr. Christine Whitlisbach? Yes. Christina Wong?
Yes.
Deborah Brown?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. We have item number 23 is the Advocacy Committee recommendations for the supervision. And before we start on that, I'd like to, big thank you to Roseanne and Christy, the chair, Leah, Betty, and Rita, for all of your hard work, and the members of the audience that also participated in all the organizations. Quite a comprehensive plan. And was discussed at the P&A
Yeah, I just want to echo the thanks, especially of staff. The two of you were amazing, the amount of work you did, and the amount of work we put you through to go research statistics in other states and what other people were doing. So you guys were amazing, and it was and thanks to the committee members who participated, because we were very effective and got a lot done, and also to our stakeholders who also attended, another meeting quarterly, or sometimes maybe a little more. So thanks to them and their input, because this took the effort of everybody, and everyone's input was really helpful and important in the process. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
I want to echo staff work here. That's where sort of a lot of our work begins and ends. It's with the staff. And we are extremely fortunate to have both Christine and Roseanne with BBS. So thank you very much.
So what you're going to see here today is the final product of the Supervision Committee. The Supervision Committee met 11 times beginning in April 2014, and then we had our last meeting in August of 2016. The first piece of legislation that came out of the Supervision Committee was in 2015. We streamlined the experience categories required for licensure, otherwise known as the buckets bill, and that bill is now in effect. So this document represents the remainder of the committee's work. There are changes that you're going to see here today that are in statute and also in regulations. So anything that's Business and Professions Code 4980, 4999, something like that, that's Business and Professions Code. That's going to run first as statute. Anything that starts with 18 something, that's regulations, and that has to run by law. You can't run statute and regulation concurrently. We wanted to, can't do it. So that's going to run second after the statute runs. Language, I'm going to go through the language sort of item by item of what we changed, kind of to guide you. We've shifted a lot of sections and a lot of things around to try to consolidate and make things more concise. Blue strikeout and underline, for the most part, represents language that we're just moving from one place to another or making minor adjustments to. Red or green strikeout or underline indicates brand new language that was not in there before. The red amendments were done by the Supervision Committee. The green amendments, there's not very many of them. It just represents some tweaks that were made by a Policy and Advocacy Committee at the September meeting that Supervision Committee has not seen. So that is what that is. I think the way that we'll do this, we have language for LMFT, LCSW, and LPCC. It's for the most part very similar, however, each language is a bit unique. So I'm going to go through the LMFT, point out where the similarities are, and then at the end we'll go through LCSW and LPCC and just point out some things that are unique to those statutes or regulations. And I'm going to ask Christy, because we both worked on this together, to jump in at any time if she has something that she wants to add, because she's an expert and did a lot of work on this as well. So I'm going to go through item by item, and I guess we can do it like at P&A where we discuss each one. Okay.
So I don't know if you want to do what you're doing. We go to a vote, and then we'll go to B. Is that
Way easier.
They're required to vote on every one of them.
Okay. Okay. On all three?
For each profession? For each profession, separate vote?
Yeah, I think so. We're going to need to, but I think it's important to, I like running through them the way you want to run through them, because I think that's important to highlight the similarities and the differences. And so once I think you get through with that and we get through the first discussion, especially with the LMFTs, I think we could take the vote on the LMFT language at that time and then move on. Yeah.
So number one, the first proposed change has to do with revising titles and definitions of intern and applicant. The intern title has been, number one, changed to associate in every place it occurs to comply with the title change that becomes effective on January 1, 2018. The definition of associate also has been revised to now include someone who is registered with the board or someone who applies for registration as an associate within 90 days of the degree award date. That's to tighten up that term to include people that are applying under the 90-day rule and starting hours right away. We also have proposed renaming the definition of applicant to applicant for licensure. And that is, it amended to mean an unlicensed person who has completed their required education and required hours of supervised experience. So they've done education and done experience. They're now applying to take an exam, or they're applying for back on that item.
Yeah. We're good on that one, I think.
The next, item number 2, that's very simple. It's just splitting Business and Professions Code Section 4980.43. That section has gotten very long over the years. That's the experience requirements for licensure. It's several pages in the statutes and regulations book. We have divided it into new sections in order to be more concise and topic focused. Each section is focused on a specific aspect of supervision. Moving along. Number 3, regarding supervisors being licensed for at least 2 years. Current law requires a supervisor to have been licensed for at least 2 years. But there were some questions and inconsistencies across the amendments allow a supervisor to supervise only if he or she has been actively licensed in California or held an equivalent license in any other state for at least 2 of the past 5 years immediately prior to commencing any supervision. That covers kind of some of the questions of when did they have to supervise, how long ago must it have been licensed in another state. That was inconsistent across the license types for some time. So we're hoping to answer those questions. Changes have also been made to this in LPCC and LPFW. Experience required of supervisors. In order to supervise a registrant, current law says that a supervisor has to have practiced psychotherapy or provided direct clinical supervision for 2 of the past 5 years. The wording of the law, that law is inconsistent across the board's license types. And also it was unclear if LPCC trainees or master's level social workers, students, if supervising them counts toward the 2 years of supervisory experience. So we made an amendment to clarify that yes, if somebody was, let's say in a university setting, supervising a social work student or an LPCC trainee, that's also acceptable experience to qualify as a supervisor, as long as it's equivalent to what it would take to supervise an intern or an associate. And it makes the language consistent for each of the board's license types. The definition of supervision. We have revised the definition of supervision to include several different statements. There are some significant additions. the committee decided to add a statement that consultation or peer discussion is not supervision and does not qualify as experience. We added an amendment to state that the supervisor should review progress notes, process notes, and other treatment records as he or she deems appropriate, and that the supervisor should engage in direct observation or review of audio or video recordings with the client's written consent, of course, as the supervisor deems appropriate. And then one other change that was amended at the Policy and Advocacy Committee meeting, and that can be found on page 127, is that there was an amendment made to require the supervisor to monitor for and address clinical dynamics, such as but not limited to countertransference, intrapsychic, interpersonal, or trauma-related issues that may affect the supervisory or the practitioner-patient relationship. On page 127, you can see how that language changed since the Policy and Advocacy Committee meeting. There were some stakeholders that had some input. And so you can see the changes from the Policy and Advocacy Committee in green.
Your thoughts, Leah?
I don't remember what it was before, but I don't have a problem with. I mean, it makes sense. The spirit of the work is the same. I'm sure there was some good reasoning behind wanting to use that language.
Before it was just monitoring for and addressing countertransference. So we added the clinical dynamics such as, but not limited
To make sure it's focused on
Yes.
the clinical work. Yeah, that's great. Okay.
Okay. Number 6 does some clarifying on the prohibition of independent contracting and gaining experience versus performing services. Current law kind of says different things in different places. Like, for example, in MFT statute, it states that MFT trainees and associates may only gain experience as an employee or volunteer. In another place in regulations, it says they can only perform services as employees or volunteers, not as independent contractors. The language is being clarified to state that no trainees, associates, or applicants for licensure are allowed to either perform service or gain experience within the defined scope of practice of their profession as an independent contractor. That's also proposed for LPCC and LCSW, although some of the language is new for LCSW.
Just for my education, do you know the rationale why they don't want the contracting experience to count towards that?
Yes, under the law, the intent of being an associate is to be working to gain experience under a supervisor. An independent contractor implies that you're working independently. Also, some businesses use that because there's some tax implications of issuing a W-2 that doesn't apply for a 1099. Number 7. While we're on the subject of 1099s, we made some other changes. Applicants for licensure occasionally do submit a 1099 tax form, which means that the individual was considered an independent contractor. However, in some cases, the applicant may truly have been a volunteer, but is seeking reimbursements for expenses such as mileage or travel for their work, and the employer issued a 1099 to reimburse them. Current law does allow this up to a maximum of $500 as reimbursement, and the applicant has to demonstrate that these payments were from reimbursement of expenses. That $500 has been in the law for a long time now, and the committee decided that a specific dollar amount should be removed from the law. It hasn't been increased in a long time. Some people in high expense counties may have more than $500 if they travel a lot of reimbursements. So that dollar amount was removed. In addition, there was discussion that the committee was aware of individuals who had been awarded a stipend or an educational loan repayment for working, for example, in an underserved region. or maybe they were working in a program designed to encourage underrepresented demographic groups to enter the profession. So an exception for these stipends and loan repayments is also that is for all three of the license types.
I have one comment. Inside of the Act, I believe in subsection H, sometimes you use stipend or educational loan repayment. Other times you use stipend or student loan repayment. I just recommend that you make that consistent. Either it's educational loan repayment or it's student loan repayment, because you use them within one subsection, different references, to make sure that you're referring to the same loan repayment. 4980.43.3, or if it helps, page 131.
It helps.
Sorry, I'm used to referring to the law.
Needs to start.
So educational loan versus
Well,
student or
either or, just
either
make it
or.
consistent.
Educational, but yeah.
Vice versa. This is like- I have a comment. Yes. I'm actually really happy about this because I work with, there are a lot of interns I work with, and I know this was an issue quite often where perhaps small nonprofit organization gain a small amount of money just to accommodate the interns, so small little items, and it's been an issue actually in the past few months in my own nonprofit because the amount was really limiting. So my question is this, though, how do you define, let's say now the expenses are run around $1,500 a month or $1,200 a month. So those are allowable as long as they are, we have some sort of proof that actually are associated with receipt. How does it work in that regards of report? If you do 1099 an intern or an associate.
I got that one.
Okay, you got it, okay.
I'm not
So I should look
concerned
at
about,
this
yeah, no, it's fine. I'm not concerned about $1,500 or $2,000, because I can clearly see what that's intended for.
Okay.
It's when I get a 1099 that's $35,000, $40,000.
Right, of course.
That suggests strongly to me that that individual is employed, but they're, as an independent contractor, and they're sort of subverting the tax system and the laws that require employers to, be fair to their employees. So those are fine, and if we need backup documentation to support a larger amount that's not a five-figure,
Right.
then, we'll ask the employee, and I'm sure that a letter from the
Organization.
the position on, just documenting what it was for.
So that means, just for my clarification, that if an intern is 1099, their hours.
They'll count as
They'll
long
count,
as,
okay.
it's, they submit a 1099, because what they have to do in addition to that, if they're volunteering, they have to have that volunteer letter, and so that has to come from you.
Right.
So as long as they submit that with the 1099, we're good.
It's perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other further discussions?
Handling crises and emergencies. The committee had discussions that they wanted to have some language in there about what happened is if a supervisee encountered a crisis or an emergency. The American Counseling Association has ethical guidelines that addresses this, and the committee took a look at that language and liked it, so we decided to incorporate that the committee decided to incorporate that into the proposed language for all supervisors, so it's all three of the license types. Okay, direct supervisor contact. Currently, trainees and associates must receive 1 hour of direct supervisor contact per work setting. Supervisees must attain additional supervision once they perform a specified amount of client contact in each setting. The amendment is changing the term client contact to direct clinical counseling to be more specific about what we are referring to. That's the basis for which the amount of supervision is determined. References to direct counseling in a couple of other sections have also been instead changed to reference direct clinical counseling in order to be consistent. So listed are the sections where that was changed, and the change also applies to LPCC and LCSW law. Okay, number 10 is closely related to number 9. Currently, and this was an issue that we worked on quite a bit. Currently, the statute doesn't state how much direct supervisor contact an MFT or PCC associate intern must have once he or she is finished gaining experience hours toward licensure. The law was silent on that, except for an ASW associate. Said that the associate needs to have at least 1 hour for every amount of client contact. An associate gaining experience must obtain at least 1 hour of direct supervisor contact in each week, plus 1 additional hour if more than 10 hours of direct client contact is gained in order for the hours to count. But once they're done, it doesn't say anything, except for in LCSW law. The committee recommended that the amount of supervision should be specified even if the experience hours are no longer being counted. The amendment requires associates and applicants who have finished gaining experience to obtain at least 1 hour of supervision per week for each setting in which direct clinical counseling is performed. That's the way that it's currently written in LCSW law. The supervision committee added a statement that supervision for non-clinical practice would be at the supervisor's discretion. So this change is also proposed for LPCC and LCSW. Definition of 1 hour of direct supervisor contact. The law was amended to provide a specific definition of what 1 hour of direct supervisor contact entails. It involves individual supervision or what group supervision counts. It also includes triadic supervision now, which is defined as 1 supervisor meeting with 2 supervisees. So that would be permitted as well. And this change is proposed across all 3 license types. The Vigil Supervision. Current regulations require that 52 of the 104 supervised weeks to have included 1 hour per week of individual supervision. Staff moved this from regulation to statute because we felt that it was more appropriate in statute rather than regulations. The committee decided that it should be amended to allow this 52 weeks of individual supervision. It can now either be individual supervision or triadic supervision. So 1 supervisor, 2 supervisees. For supervision in a group, current law states that group supervision consists of up to 8 supervisees. An amendment states that the supervisor must ensure that the amount of supervision is appropriate for each supervisee. I will note on page 128, the committee, Policy and Advocacy Committee did make a minor wording change to this statement. So you can find that on page 128. Before we proceed, minute break. 51 or 9:51.